strong.
Chapter 371, Dean's Raw. Seeing all this, Chumin lowered his head slightly. 1 year ago, she was still the arrogant daughter of Wang Zongzong. The stars hold the moon. After meeting Qin Li, she was expected to be the future hostess of the Qin dynasty. However, she had fallen in love with Ye Fuxian. Today, Wajayu replaced her as Mizuki girl. They went to the academy again. Of course, Wajayu really took the light that was once hers. There was a feeling of loss in his heart. At this moment, of course, no one cared what he thought. Even when Ye Fuxian appeared beside Hua Jiu, the three beauties in the eastern wasteland had no sense of existence. In the void, Zhu Hui glanced at Ye Fuxian with a smile, then landed on the ground, and looked at the fairy Wang Yu. Welcome the suzerain to Shushan. Sorry, said the fairy Mochizuki. Teacher has gone to the dean, does the fairy have any thoughts? Zhu Gehui asked, and the teacher went to the dean to discuss how to place Wang Wezong. After all, Wang Wezong is a teacher, and the number of students is no more than Shushan. Fewer students. Wait for Master Du's opinion. Fairy Wangu said, Wang Wezong came to Shushan, but he actually asked for help, and he definitely wouldn't ask for anything. However, Kotang and Qin dynasty acted differently. This could be seen from Dao Shang's attitude. How Zhu Hui saw Qin Yu at his feet at the foot of the Tianshan mountains. Kotang's second disciple is an arrogant woman, but this seems to be peaceful at times, where no one is as tall as Qin Yu. Okay, then I'll be here with the suzerain. Zhu Hui laughed. Older brother. At this time, Ye Fuxian shouted. Zhu Gehui smiled and looked at him, and saw Ye Fuxian smiling. Brother, can you help me say something in front of the teacher? Seeing Ye Fuxian's expression, how could Zhu Hui not understand his thoughts, and said with a smile, go to the teacher yourself. Ah, Ye Fuxian had a bad feeling. Can the old man agree? Zhu Hui looked at Ye Fuxian and said, are you making the teacher angry? Rest assured, the teacher's small request will still promise you. Thank you, sister. Ye Fuxian smiled brightly, and he was relieved when he said that the old man did not agree with him. He would harass the second sister. The people in Wanguzong glanced at Hua Xiu with envy. It seemed that Siyu would be training in the thatched hut. Ye Fuxian's relationship is good. However, Wajayu was now their girl from the moon sect, and it was also good to be able to follow Master Du in the thatched hut. Ellipsis ellipsis ellipsis. The first mountain of Shuyun is also the highest mountain of Shushan. Clouds and fog, ancient palaces and pavilions stand, and there are many caves and heavens, all of which are sacred places for spiritual practice. As the first mountain in the academy, it is the best built here, and the aura should be more abundant. There are many law formations on the mountain peak, which are as simple as a hut. In front of a pavilion on the first mountain, there are two figures here, an old man wearing a grey robe and has an extraordinary temperament, has long hair and a long beard, and has bones like a fairy. Next to him was a handsome young man, a student book from Shoshan. Brother. At this time, when a voice came out, he saw an old man in simple clothes enter directly and shouted at the grey-robed old man, Brother, I haven't seen you for many years, and still looks good. The grey-clothed old man looked at the person with a cold gaze, and said indifferently, you still remember my brother, it is rare. It turned out that the grey-robed old man was the dean of the academy, and the person who came was Master Du. Big brother, what is this? Big brother always thinks about big brother when he goes out, said Mr. Du. Is that true? The dean of the academy still looked indifferent, and said indifferently, why did you think of seeing me after returning to the mountain? Because of what happened to Wang Wezong. The main thing is to see my brother. The thing about Wang Wezong is nothing more than a trivial matter, Du said. Hee. The dean of the academy sneered. Teacher, uncle, the disciples retreat first. At this time, Bai Liu do a favor, then lifted his leg and left here. The grudge between teacher and uncle has a long history. I can participate, and his uncle has always been very mysterious, he rarely comes to the first mountain, and he has only seen him a few times. Brother, I haven't been here for several years. Your mountain has been built more and more majestic. Is there a little disciple? Please add more talents, Du said softly. I have quite a number of disciples here, but this is a hut, there are only a few disciples on the mountain. Even if the next gate is accommodated, it doesn't matter. The dean sneered, and someone shouted, thinking of giving it their all. Brother, do you know that I am lazy, and I am not in the mountain all year round, so many beautiful little girls, I can't help but delay. Big brother is the boss of Shushan, naturally arranged by the brother, I believe the brother say a few words, several leaders will cooperate, said Mr. Du. What's more, everyone has a common enemy now, my brother, you can't ease the heart. Therefore, the Jushan in Shushan is evenly distributed. The dean looked towards Master Du. Didn't the hut accept many students, and he wanted to put people in the hut? This is impossible, you don't know what my disciple is like. Their mouths are very coquettish. They look good and have good talent. They are too kind to cause trouble. Don't count the hut. Master Du waved. Quote. The academy president looked at Master Du coldly, furiously. Is my disciple at Shoshan not outstanding? Brother has something to say. Well, anger is not good. Mr. Du suggested. Brother is so firm. Wang Wezong is also a major force. Many outstanding young girls will train with future college students, and learn from progress. More motivated. You should do some comparisons every now and then. The effect was definitely stronger than before. Up to you. The head of the academy, Hu Zufei, couldn't stand it. Brother, I will be angry with you like this, said Master Du with a smile. Seeing his expression, the dean of the academy was even more furious, and said coldly, so what? I'm really angry. Master Du smiled brighter and brighter. You. The college dean pointed his finger at Mr. Du, and said coldly, go. There he is. Master Du smiled in satisfaction and then turned to leave. That's too much of a bluff. The head of the academy, Hu Zu, flew with the wind. Right. Du suddenly stopped and smiled. My big disciple will also bring people from Sword Hill to Shushan. At that time, my brother will also arrange for the 3 disciples to discuss together, and they will definitely promote each other. I trained hard for the academy. Speak. Mr. Du turned and left again, beautiful and comfortable. Why don't you just die outside? The dean of the academy was furious. Wang Wezong and Sword Holy Mountain, plus the disciples in the academy, the 3 major forces are united, and I don't know how many things will happen, he will have to deal with it. That bastard better, just keep drinking and sleeping in the hut. Besides, why does his big disciple also have to organize in the academy? When did his students see the academy? The Book of Miles, shouted the dean loudly, and saw a white figure flashing, and then saw Book Miles coming here, shouting, teacher. I don't know why the teacher was angry. Go, tell a few mountain leaders, go down the mountain together to meet Chia Wezong's people, and arrange for them on every mountain. The old man said angrily. Teacher, how did you manage it? Barry asked. Look after yourself. The dean flipped his sleeves, and Bai Lishu shook her head with a smirk, don't you think? Ellipsis. Shushan is starting to get busy, and the disciples in the academy are a little excited, and the fairies of Wang Wezong are actually arranged to train in every mountain. However, most of the people who train in Shukangshan Mountain, after all, are women. After all, she is not a female disciple, and Wang Wezong is a woman. Chu Yi chose the mountain. Other students have also chosen their own practice sites. Although it always felt awkward, it was worth looking forward to training with the academy's students. They can discuss each other's skills and make progress together. There was a festive scene in Shushan, and the moon elf was watching going to the hut with Juj Hui. Ye Fusion and Wajayu naturally joined together. Thatched hut, Mochizuki saluted the elf after seeing Master Du. The younger generation has seen Master Du. He's in junior etiquette. Although Donghang was rumored that Mr. Du will not practice, in this context, the 3 Kotang disciples are considered the same as him. Mr. This legendary Du was naturally honorable. And he is not very old, and there is no problem in managing etiquette. You are welcome. When you arrive at Shushan, you don't need to be controlled like at home. Mr. Du smiled. Mochizuki fairy nodded gently, Master, after the storm in the east. Rest assured, the academy is not the Qin dynasty, and I don't want to unite Donghang. Don't worry about it, you have to be a guest in Shushan for a while, and if you have seen my great disciple, he will also bring Dosheng Mountain. If you come to Shushan, you can do the 2nd and 3rd meditation. If you have the opportunity, you can discuss it together. You can set foot in the thatched hut without restrictions, said Du. Thank you very much, Fairy Lord Wang Wezong. It seems that Master Du has no idea of hegemony. See you, quickly meet the teacher. Ye Fusion said this time. Hua Jeyu nodded slowly, and said to Master Du, the younger generation has met the teacher. The old man looked at Ye Fusion with a smile. Ye Fusion trembled, and scratched his head. Master, can you see if the interpretation can be put into practice in the thatched hut? Ye Fusion said. You asked him to call my teacher, may I refuse? The old man glared at him, then looked at Waji and said, after the girl, you can train with me and help me look at her. Okay. Hua Jeyu smiled and nodded, glancing at Ye Fusion proudly. Ye Fusion blinked. Whose teacher is this? Chapter 372, Sanding. After the Wangu sect, the sacred mountain sword was also moved above Shuzong. The eastern region of the West is in a state of chaos, with the two great powers entering Shushan, and now a superpower was born in Shushan, the existence of a terrible academy, thatched hut, Dosheng Mountain, and Wang Wezong. Moreover, Wang Wezong was forced into Shushan by the Qin dynasty itself. Like Shushan, the Fuyun Sword sect and the suspended King Palace also officially moved to the Qin dynasty. Obviously, these two powers are clear. As long as Kotang sent the Sword sect to their ancestral gate, it would most likely be a great disaster. Everything Liu Guo did was a lesson. At the same time, Qin dynasty's eyeliners are now deployed in Shushan or in the ancient world, if the Shushan army raids the Qin dynasty or Donghazong. Donghang, it seems, has entered the era of confrontation between the two super alliances. This will be a critical stage in the Donghang country. After one side wins, the other party is likely to become the king of Donghang. The remaining three top-tier powers, the Qiangqiu Temple, Dao Dezong, and the Ji family, didn't dare to get involved easily and watched. With Wang Wezong's experience, the Qin dynasty naturally will not deal with them anymore, otherwise it is likely to be counterproductive. At first, Qin Yu attacked Wang Wezong. One of them is that the alliance of the four major powers has come true, and they all think that Wang Wezong is really unbearable. The second was because of Chu Yi and Hua Jieyu. Qin Yu wants to deal with Chu Yi and Ye Fusion. Therefore, Qin Yu decided to start with Wang Wezong and destroy him without obedience, but he did not expect to be ambushed by the Sword Master. In the battle, several peak masters of Fuyun Janzong and several palace masters of the King of Deferred Kings fell, which officially opened the prelude to the peak battle. Therefore, the troops on both sides successively chose to move. However, after the Battle of Mochizun, both sides were silent and no collision occurred. It is said that the Qin dynasty let the main figures of all armies train in the ancestral tomb, seeking a breakthrough, perhaps to end the era of World War I. Shushan is also very agile. Three forces together, and various things are staged every day. Many young people in the academy seemed to have a new spring, and had a stronger ability to cultivate. Many of Mochizuki's fairies were taken by chase, especially those beauties. Ellipsis. At the end of the Shungshu calendar year, in 2003, there was no heavy rain and heavy rain, coming without speaking. Too much has happened in Donghang this year. The peace at the end of the year seemed to end everything this year. Of course, this is by no means the end. Kotang, Ye Fusion has not been well lately. They were harassed. They were immersed in the practice of magic every day. Fortunately, Yu was training with him right now. When he was tired, he would look at him. Yu looks good. Teacher, you can't take a day off at the end of the day. Ye Fusion bullied too much on the old man sitting on the cliff drinking and admiring the sea of clouds. Just because you are so weak, you still want to rest every day. The old man did not look back, and said disdainfully, how is the magic? Teacher, the spell is not challenging at all, don't you believe in the talent of your students? Ye Fusion felt depressed. Talent, do you still have talent? The old man sneered, then slowly stood up and walked to Ye Fusion, and said, I feel really good. I don't know where I came from. But practicing this spell is really simple. Ye Fusion said, you never really intended to let me practice all the spells in the book pit. The old man put his hand on his arm, then took out a thin book and threw it in front of Ye Fusion. Since the taste is simple, try this spell. No problem. Ye Fusion nodded, then took the book and opened it, looking at the book. Gradually, his eyes changed, and the laughing expression disappeared, looking a little serious, and sometimes frowning. Seeing this scene, Hua Sheu next to him showed curiosity. What did the teacher give him to practice? After arriving at the hut, Hua Jieyu and Ye Fusion practiced with Master Du. Both of them were full attribute, and the practice was the same. There was no difference between teaching one and teaching two. This is really a forming spell. Ye Fusion looked at the old man sitting on the cliff. Don't do it yourself, you can't do it. Don't you think very highly of yourself, only at this level? The old man hated. Ye Fusion looked at the old man. This old man was clearly intentional. Ye Fusion is very depressed. Since training with this old man, he is humiliated every day. Is this really a teacher? Although the father-in-law's mouth is also slightly damaged, it should not be too different from this old man. Ye Fusion's mind lowered his head and continued to look, then closed his eyes and tried to condense his magic. The wooden vines rolled toward the void, making a crackling sound, with a faint golden light clinging to it, and the power of the wind following. No. Ye Fusion shook his head and kept trying. Fail again and again and again. Around him, Hua Jiu looked at the book, and his eyes were shocked, although he had also heard the fusion and release of spells, or the fusion of magic and martial arts, he had never seen such spells. Is it really possible to cast the same spell with multiple attributes at once? Each aura type is single and independent. Mages often release two types of spells to increase strength during battle. For example, when casting offensive spells, cast wind spells on them to increase attack. The speed and power of a sex spell, or the ability to attach thunder to it, could easily be achieved. However, the incantation given to Fu Tian by Mr. Du is not the same as these spells, instead, they are condensed into the same spell with 3 attribute auras. Can it be achieved? Ye Fusion became serious, as if fighting against himself. Master Du drank leisurely, lay on his body, and occasionally glanced at Ye Fusion, showing a faint smile. After a long time, Ye Fusion stopped trying, and looked at the edge of the cliff, wondering, you won't give me a spell that only the people above the sky can practice, right? If you can't, just admit it. Regarding your talent, I really don't know where to be proud, and I don't know why I have such a poor disciple. The old man sighed. Ye Fusion gritted his teeth, the souled bastard. Want to learn? The old man squinted and looked at Ye Fusion. Think. Ye Fusion hated secretly, but a smile appeared on his face. Already gone? The old man asked. Students are stupid, and I hope the teacher will give me some advice. Hold it. Because I know, there is still a rescue. The old man stood up casually, walked over to Ye Fusion, and said, although you are a mage, you are only a beginner level. You don't understand what a true spell is. Spiritual power communicates aura, and then a simple combination is the simplest spell in magician. The most extravagant. The aura between the heavens and the earth is like a stroke. It needs to be combined into a single character, and then turned into a language. There are countless combinations, and different spells. A great master can control each one very skillfully. Characters can easily be combined into spells at will, so they must be proficient in thousands of spells. Only by getting to know them can they be more creative and even create new spells themselves. The old man spoke slowly. Ye Fusion and Hua Jiu listened carefully and were very attentive. Spiritual power is a bridge for magicians to communicate with characters. Those who are strong in the realm of heaven and heaven can better understand heaven and earth, and resonate with the aura between heaven and earth. In an instant, all the aura characters in the world around are present in your mind. They are an extension of your arms and legs. Your mental powers seem to be all over the place. All of your characters move with your thoughts. Do you understand? Said the old man. Ye Fusion and Hua Jiu were both contemplative and needed time to digest it and practice. Don't you understand the prince's will? Why don't you understand something so simple? The old man hated. Ye Fusion froze for a moment, thinking of the power hidden in the will of the prince of fire, can make people feel the power of the invisible flame, which may be the teacher's reason. He also felt a more mysterious power in Guoshan, such as the power of the Road of Rules. Where is the sage? Ye Fusion suddenly asked curiously. Sage. The old man looked at Ye Fusion with disdain. A sage can kill you with a thought. Ye Fusion's eyes flashed. Don't believe it. It so happens that your master is here to make you feel the sage of the sage in the second part of the step. The old man looked not far away, and it was the sword that walked to the side and smiled. Teacher, today as old are they all still teaching their young masters? This guy's talent is bad, but I don't know how to let him lose my face on the outside, so I have to get tired of the old man. Mr. Du sighed. You heard what I said just now, let him feel it. Okay. Dao Shang nodded, looked at Ye Fusion. Brother, be careful. All right, master. Ye Fusion nodded. For a moment, the sword saint's mind moved, and Ye Fusion suddenly felt a little cold and bitter. He was stiff and didn't dare to move, and his forehead was sweating. At this time, he was in the middle of the sword, and he felt that his body seemed to be crushed, and in this sword, he was cut off. Master wants to kill him, and he doesn't have to shoot. This feeling only disappeared for a moment, and in this very short moment, Ye Fusion's back was soaking wet, as if walking from purgatory once. Practice well, don't be lazy. The old man said to see Ye Fusion's expression, then stepped forward and left with Dao Shang, but Ye Fusion was still in a daze. In the distance, Dao Shang smiled and said, Teacher, young master has been very kind. Why did he hit him like this? This kid is too crazy, he has to study too much. The old man showed a meaningful smile. Chapter 373, One More Year. Ye Fusion was a bit depressed. Ever since he started his training, he hasn't been hit by a heavy blow. He continued to practice the spell entrusted to him by the teacher, and realized that the words the teacher had said earlier, although slightly improved, were still worse. After a long time, he paused and said, "What kind of spell did this old man cast? This is really difficult, the teacher must have stimulated you on purpose, don't be discouraged." Hua Jiu smiled sweetly. "It's still a good elf in my house." Ye Fusion saw the bright smile on Siyu's side, and opened his hand and said, "Come and comfort me. Going to you, I've been practicing." Hua Jiu looked at him gratefully, then turned around, and felt the same words Mr. Du before. "Fu Gang is weak." Ye Fusion whispered, then closed his eyes. Instead of continuing to practice the spell, he felt it with his heart. Spiritual power communicated with the aura between the heavens and the earth around him, and he walked in an endless aura. He had learned a lot of spells today, and he had indeed benefited a lot. Although the power of these spells were mostly average, they might not have much effect in future battles, but they were indeed beneficial for his practice. The space is quiet, the grass is green, the breeze is blowing, showing the slightest coolness. Ye Fusion and Hua Jiu both sat quietly with their eyes closed. At this moment, Ye Fusion's perception was that he no longer had a physical body, and his mental strength seemed to be everywhere and remained between heaven and earth. In perception, he seems to be transformed into an ancient tree, and every aura of the wood property between heaven and earth is like a part of an ancient tree. Suddenly, in the heavens and earth around Ye Fusion, a beam of branches and vines appeared out of nowhere, and a clattering sound came out. With Ye Fusion's body as the center, endless branches and vines rolled crazily into the surrounding space. Covered the sky, immediately flooded a large area around him, as if everywhere, his body was the source of everything, like a tree. Ye Fusion opened his eyes and looked at the image in front of him. It was also a Qiantesuo spell. When he sensed and released it with his heart, the power was much stronger than before. Hua Jiu also woke up. Looking at the image in front of him, he smiled brightly. Although he has not studied the master's spell, he has made great progress, which means that Ye Fusion's method is correct. Ye Fusion smiled and continued to immerse himself in practice. The time to cast the spell became slower, but the power of the spell became stronger. At the same time he was training and was about to talk about his practice experience with Hua Jiu, subconsciously. Towards dusk, the setting sun fell on Ye Fusion's face. The angular lines are more handsome. Hua Jiu didn't know when she came to Ye Fusion. He sat there with his knees bent, holding his cheeks in his hands, and looked at Ye Fusion with a smile. When Ye Fusion's eyes opened, a beautiful face appeared and smiled. "What are you looking at?" "Look at you." Hua Jiu smiled sweetly. "How this man looks more and more beautiful." Ye Fusion blinked and smiled. "I will be interested if you are like this." "What do you think?" Hua Jiu smiled at him. "I want a right hand." "You dare." Hua Jiu flashed a red glow on her face, and it was even more beautiful in the sunset. "See if I dare." Ye Fusion suddenly leaned forward and threw Hua Jiu into the grass. A scream came out, and Hua Jiu lay there. With him, he did not dare to look into her eyes, tucked her head in, her face was red, and it was even more touching. "Fairy, you are so beautiful." Ye Fusion said. Hua Jiu's head slowly turned. Mei glanced at him, and said, "Not yet." "Yes." Ye Fusion replied with a smile, but suddenly lowered his head, and gently kissed Hua Jiu's forehead, very gently. "Go, find your father-in-law." Ye Fusion got up and pulled Hua Jiu, then took his hand to leave here, and Hua Jiu left him to pull. Two green figures running on the grass, the sunset fell on the two of them, just like a picture. Ellipsis ellipsis ellipsis. Both Wanguzong and Doshan came to Shushan, and Ye Fusion naturally brought flowers to the mountains. They settled in the courtyard on the mountainside of Mount Kotang. When Ye Fusion and Hua Jiu arrived, they smelled a fragrance. "Teacher, madam, what's good?" Ye Fusion walked in and saw that dinner was ready. Madam and Aunt Tang are busy. The rest of his life, Ye Qingshuan and Tang Wan helped. As for the princes and Lu Langxiu, Ye Fusion sent them back to the ancient country of Lulan. At the end of the year, they naturally spent time with their families. Several disciples on the mountain in Shushan descended the mountain. After seeing the bountiful dinner, Ye Fusion smiled and said, "I really envy the teacher, and I can marry my sister-in-law and Aunt Tang." Hua Fengyu glanced at him and said, "See you, he means something." Ye Fusion turned his eyes and saw Hua Jiu smiling at him. "No, absolutely not." Ye Fusion smiled. "That's not necessarily the case," Ye Qingshuan said with a smile. "For the rest of your life, take care of your daughter-in-law, a good word." Ye Fusion said. The rest of his life gave him a disdainful look. She was afraid her daughter-in-law would be like this. Let him take care of his daughter-in-law. What does it look like? Ye Fushun saw the expression from the rest of his life. The rest of his life is not the rest of his life. Fushun, in Shushan, don't call me teacher anymore. Hua Fengyu said. Ye Fushun naturally understood what he meant, and now Ye Fushun learned from Master Kotangdu and naturally avoided taboos. Teacher, don't think too much, then the old man won't care about this. Ye Fushun said, not to mention there are two teachers. Fushun, Mr. Du is a strange man, don't make nonsense. Master Nandu Wening came over, Ye Fushun was depressed, and Madam even helped the old man speak, miserable. Okay, follow my father-in-law's instructions. Ye Fushun nodded. Nan Duan smiled and said, I will eat, return to the hut early after eating, and accompany your teacher, your brother and sister. I am with the teachers every day, and they are here today, Ye Fushun said. Just to accompany us, whoever cares about you, leave early after eating. Dao Wahun carelessly, Ye Fushun showed a sad look, this family status is also a nobody. What state are you in now? Tang Wan asked Ye Fushun, he was curious. Divine position, Ye Fushun said, see you in the rest of his life. Tang Wan pursed her lips, and was a little speechless. These people practiced very quickly, and the situation in the sky was already a big man in Donghai city. Hua Fengyu and Tang Lan were also in this state. It's been more than 4 years. Hua Fengyu sighed, revealing a streak of memories. In 9999 of the divine calendar, he met Ye Fushun and became a disciple. Now, this disciple had almost caught up with him. Previously, Ye Futian was also compared to the paintings of the holy disciples. At this time, times have changed, and the sea is like a dream. Well, I have known you for more than 4 years. Ye Fushun nodded. Today, 4 years ago, on the shores of Qingzhou Lake in Qingzhou City, the two were holding hands to define their relationship. Tomorrow is 10,400 years of the divine calendar, and you are 20 years old. Hua Fengyu looked at Ye Fushun and Hua Jiu, and the time passed so quickly, it was 20. Well, it's time to marry the daughter-in-law. Ye Fushun smiled, and the group glared at him. This guy is really a little naughty. Wait, when you have your brother-in-law and brother-in-law cultivating, it's still early, Tang Lan said beside him. Aunt Tang, that's too much. Ye Fushun looked at Tang Lan pitifully. What kind of strength are big brother and three big brothers, half-step sage, first prince, all standing at the peak of the eastern desert? How long is this? Eat. Tang Lan didn't care about it. Hua Fengyu and Nan Duaning smiled, and then the family enjoyed it and enjoyed the year-end banquet. It's been a long time since the family spent a warm time. However, Ye Fushun was depressed. After eating, he was literally out of the house. It was sad, but fortunately, the teacher didn't ruthlessly rob him of his time with Cu, and let him go with him. After returning to the hut, Ye Fushun enjoyed dinner with the teachers and brothers and sisters, and then they found dustless and Sinkfish and talked. Unknowingly the night grew darker, and a meniscus hung in the sky. On the cliffside of Kotang Hoshan, Ye Fushun and Hua Sheu sat on the grass, and melodious notes came out, playing in a quiet place. Kinyan is beautiful, sad, and tells a story, a very old story. The thatched hut, on top of an old tree, stood quietly on the tree. Fluttering white, like a fairy under the moon. A figure came silently to the ancient tree next to it and landed there. The figure, who was also dressed in white, was handsome and extraordinary. At night, those dark eyes looked at the fairy under the moon. As if the woman didn't see it, her eyes were still looking into the distance. The young man did not speak, and quietly with him. Little master is very powerful. A piece of music like that should only exist in heaven, said the fairy under the moon with a smile. It is the second teacher's sister Juj Hui. Homesick. Jiu Dongyu said. What can you imagine? Since coming out, I won't be returning. Juj Hui laughed. One day, I will bring you back. Jiu Dongyu. Can you do that? Zhu Gehui turned his eyes and looked at him with a smile. Jiu Dongyu said nothing, blinked, and left here. Juj Hui looked at the disappearing figure, looked up, and looked at the empty crescent moon. Ellipsis, ellipsis, ellipsis. At the highest point in the hut, at this moment there was also a calm figure lying on a rock and drinking. This is an old man, worn and shabby. As he drinks, he listens to music, revealing his intoxication. I didn't think I could listen to Ukyoku all my life. The old man laughed, his eyes seemed to penetrate time and fall into memory. More than 300 years ago, the Ukyo-mu was accompanied by the emergence of a generation of emperors. This night. Chapter 374, Ying Longlao Divine Calendar for 10,044 years. The thatched hut, the mountains behind, the rolling sea of clouds, the beautiful sunrise, like a painting. On the grass, the sound of the harp was long, and the first rays of the new year fell on Ye Fusion's face, full of vitality, and the harp was the same. Hua Jeyu sat beside him, quietly admiring the beautiful sunrise, listening to the sound of the harp, all of which were very beautiful. If life could be like that forever, it would be beautiful too. Beautiful eyes look around. The aura between heaven and earth seemed to be a substance, and it continued to fall, like a hint of golden light. Every aura was so clear. The space where the two of them was surrounded by an aura. It's because of the piano sound. When Ye Fusion used spiritual power to push the piano to resonate with heaven and earth, the aura between heaven and earth around him seemed to be still. The rising sun fell on Ye Fusion. The handsome figure was filled with a strange temperament, as if everything in the world was under his control. Every ray of spiritual power in the surroundings appeared in Ye Fusion's mind at this moment, with different attributes. His aura fused with the same artistic conception given in the sound of the piano, and merged into that will. I saw Ye Fusion's right and 5 fingers swiping the strings. At the moment of his mind, a crackling sound came out, and he saw that the aura of the heaven and earth around him turned into a bright golden vine, which continued to grow and grow. With increasing the stronger the aura gathered, the golden vine swept out from the surrounding space like a flash of lightning. With incredible speed, Hua Jeyu was surprised to see the glint of oddity in these beautiful eyes. Ye Fusion managed to construct the spell entrusted to him by the teacher in a day. King Yin gradually rested, Ye Fusion opened his eyes, and the rays of the rising sun fell on his body, not dazzling, and a smile appeared in his clean eyes. The 3-line attribute aura was combined into the spell. This new spell had the toughness of wood, the sharpness and defense of gold, and the speed of wind. Its terrifying power would far exceed that of wood. Spell name, Twisting Death. Good. Hua Jeyu smiled. That is, you don't see who I am. Ye Fusion said arrogantly. Huh? Hua Ji snorted softly. Are you saying that the old man doesn't have many spells of this kind? Ye Fusion muttered. If they were all spells of this level, it was just that those simple spells would definitely kill the existences of the same level, and they would not be fighting in the future. It is necessary to rely too much on Skyline 9 strikes, strong martial arts abilities, and spelling abilities to help each other, and the fighting power can be increased to another level. In this case, even if you enter the sky, you don't have to worry about the ability to fight across boundaries. After all, as the region increases, the gap between each region will become larger, and the ways of others will become stronger and stronger. The upgrade effect would weaken, and if he wanted to have the cross-border combat power like before, he had to do more. Greedy. Hua Jeyu smiled. This is also called greed. I also want to be like this every day and today. I can see my fairy at first glance in the morning. Ye Fusion laughed. Hua Jeyu naturally understood the meaning, and smiled. What do you want? Without a melody, can you release the spell in death entanglement as you please, not practicing well, waiting to show off in front of Master Du? Makes sense, but my family understands me. Ye Fusion nodded, then closed his eyes, before entering the beautiful world with a tone, and integrating spiritual will into the aura between heaven and earth, then releasing the spell. Without Ukyo-gun's help, it's hard. Ye Fusion continued to understand and practice magic. A few hours later, the teacher came casually and lay down, and saw Ye Fusion and Hua Jeyu smiling in their practice. This kid is still a hard worker, it looks like he needs to fight more. If Ye Fusion knew his thoughts and didn't know if he would speed blood, he would be hit too hard. Teacher, Hua Jeyu turned around and shouted. Girl is still early, Master Du said with a smile. Ye Fusion also stood up, his eyes rolled, with a somewhat proud expression, and said, Teacher, the spell you gave me yesterday is not difficult, my students have learned. Really? Let me see. The old man looked at Ye Fusion with a smile on both hands. Ye Fusion nodded, he closed his eyes, and a greatness would fill his body, and spiritual power resonated with the aura between heaven and earth. After a while, golden vines covered the sky and a sun was born in the heavens and the earth that surrounded it. It grew very fast, covering the entire space within. Seeing the spell in front of him, the old man looked at Ye Fusion with a disdainful look. It only takes one day to learn. It took so long to cast a spell. Who is waiting for you during the battle? If you meet an opponent of comparable strength, the spell does not appear. For you I'm dead. Ye Fusion blinked. Shouldn't the script be surprised by the teacher and impressed by his talent? But it seems reasonable. Hey, how come you are here? This is a pretty dividing line. Fiction netizens, please pay attention to the other part of your eye for a long time. Recommended reading, this is a beautiful dividing line. Terrible student. The old man sighed with depression, there are still some spells here, so keep practicing well. Don't go anywhere before you learn it, otherwise I won't lose face when I go down the mountain. It is said that the old man threw a few books to Ye Fusion, then turned around, took his hand, and walked away leisurely. 039, I. Ye Fusion wanted to curse, but glanced at the book he picked up. Hold it. Hua Jehu smiled sweetly, this person finally met the enemy, Master Du is indeed a foreigner, but his father has no way to take Ye Fusion. As a result, Ye Fusion was completely banned from his feet. Starting from the first day of the new year, he was prohibited from practicing in Hoshan. That's too sad. Ye Fusion lost his position in the thatched hut before the teacher returned. Ellipsis, ellipsis, ellipsis. Time passed day by day, the eastern wasteland was still calm, there was no storm, and the Qing Dynasty alliance troops were still cultivating themselves. The people of the eastern wasteland are very clear that they are preparing for a decisive battle. Now that the situation had deteriorated to such a point, the battle of the Eastern Famine was unavoidable, and in a sense, the Qing dynasty could not wait any longer. Du has returned to the mountain. His ability to cultivate his disciples look, where you dare to give him too much time. Tianshan, since the bell rang last year, Tianshan snow has never been heard. The first mountain in the eastern desert has now turned into a snow mountain, covered by a vast white snow. After a long time, the natural bells did not ring anymore. The original battle was already at the feet of Tianshan, but there were still many people here. For example, the Qiankyu Temple, the supreme power in the western region of the eastern wasteland, has now moved to Shushan, and naturally the place in the western region is the Qiankyu Temple. However, for the Qiankyu Temple, they still have a sense of urgency. Donghang's current situation was as soon as war broke out and victory was divided. The Donghang situation will be achieved, and one party will have exclusive respect. The era of the so-called top powers will also pass. They have to change and become stronger. At the foot of Tianshan Mountain, the Buddha looked at this unreachable Tianshan Mountain. He remembered the situation when he climbed the mountain last year. The first time he climbed Tianshan Mountain, he reached the highest place. After that, he tried many times. Never reached that height. Tianshan's demon breath is getting stronger and stronger. At this time, a monk in the Qiankyu temple next to the Buddha said, holding a bead in his hand, and looked at the mountain in front of him. This has been the case since the bell rang constantly, and the repressive forces have also strengthened, as if the two powers were always in balance and facing each other. Another person next to him. Is it true that the Tianshan bell is really the emperor's summons, and someone has set foot in Tianshan? One muttered. It is very likely that this is the best time after the first bell of Tianshan rings. The Buddha heard the words of the elders and recalled what happened on Tianshan mountain during his first mountain ascent. At that time, someone conspired against him and used the aura on Tianshan mountain to chase him, scaring him from Tianshan mountain. If someone really stepped on the peak of Tianshan mountain, then would he be the one to plot against him? Moreover, Tianshan rang the bell once when he came down. It was then that Ye Fusion descended the mountain. At that time, the Qing dynasty prince wanted to deal with him, and the bell rang. Is this really a coincidence? The coldness of the Buddha's eyes showed coldness. He sensed that if someone really set foot on Tianshan mountain, that person would most likely be Ye Fusion. At this time, a yin dragon came from the sky, and the powerful eyes of the Qiankyu temple flashed. This yin dragon is not from Tianshan, but came to Tianshan. Looking away, the people of Qiankyu temple looked up at the sky, snowflakes fell in the sky, and in the sky, a majestic true dragon appeared. This true dragon has wings and is actually Yinglong with the title of King of the Sky. Yinglong swooped down and came to the side, and the people in Qiankyu temple trembled at the sight in the void, not only because they saw Yinglong, but also behind Yinglong, many tyrants. The figure is even more shocking. On Ying's body Long also pulled the car. Someone came by the dragon, and had to attract the dragon. The people in the Qiankyu temple were shocked, not to mention the others. At the foot of Tianshan mountain, many people looked into the void, their hearts trembling. Come on, who is this? In the eastern desert, I only heard that the dragon army of the Qing dynasty is very impressive, but there is no such battle. Long Ling stopped in front of Tianshan mountain, and behind Ying Long, a group of eyes glanced indifferently, looking cold and emotionless. After that, the young people who got out of Yinglong's car were a few young people. They are very famous. They did not look down, but saw Tianshan in front of them. Was this the place where Emperor Donghang and Ye King had left their footprints? Chapter 375, The One Who Changed the World. After Emperor Dongheng and Ye King unified China, many people in China began to follow in the footsteps they left behind. Many people know that Emperor Dongheng and Emperor Ye King once grew up in the Eastern Wasteland, and many people want to set foot in the Eastern Wasteland. However, at that time, the two emperors issued a ban, and those who were not in the Eastern Wasteland were not allowed to enter the Eastern Wasteland. The two emperors ruled China, and they were incomparable, they were forbidden, who would dare to violate the prohibition. However, today, many people are a little confused as to why the two emperors issued this prohibition. Even so, in that era, there are still many strong people who come to chase the ruins of the two emperors naturally. They also know Tianshan, but no one can set foot on the peak of Tianshan, especially the strongest in the princely era. However, last year, news came to their ears, and a bell rang above Tianshan. The forces in the Eastern Wasteland gathered in Tianshan. In Tianshan, it is possible to find the ruins left by Emperor Shuangdi. Behind Yinglong, the two-headed men wore silver shirts and looked at Tianshan. One of them said, "I heard that many people came to try many years ago. Nothing worked." Yes, nothing worked, and then gave up, and really came to the east. According to my speculation, Tianshan included the meaning of the two emperors. The sage has the opportunity to resist the power and set foot in Tianshan. There is a ban. The sage is not allowed come in. No one dares to come secretly. No one knows whether the will left by the Dongheng Emperor can see everything that happens in Tianshan Mountain. Next to the young man, a powerful prince responded. He said that he had a deeper understanding. Good about the events of that year. Did the two emperors leave something in Tianshan? The young man was a little curious. Now everything about the two emperors will be curious, which is a true legend. Who knows, since the bell rang, there must be something. You came really fast. In the distance, there was a sound. Above the void, a fiery red light suddenly came, melting the snow and ice in the sky, and a bright figure descended from the sky, stabbing people. Eyes are like the sun. It was a huge sun ****** bird. Jingu was three-legged, burned with fire, his eyes were stunned, and swept away. Behind Jingu, there seemed to be a solar carriage, with many strong people standing on both sides of the wagon. There is someone sitting in the middle, just like the people who came before, very dazzling. This battle. The people under the Tianshan mountains were shocked. Two strong people in succession came and their appearance was very beautiful. Unlike the power in the Eastern Wasteland, it was even more dazzling. Many people's hearts trembled. Could they be from outside the east? East of the desert, how many years no outsiders set foot? I will try it. The silver-clothed youth said lightly, without looking at the speaker, and walked straight to Tianshan. Many young people beside him stepped out. With him, they were all in the heaven realm. The princes did not enter the Tianshan mountains, and they knew many years ago. Jin Wusuo's rickshaw that was killed by 3 feet also caused the young people to step forward to Tianshan. Yinglong and Jinwu 3 feet remained in the void, drawing in a lot of light. What you see in the next few days makes the people at the foot of Tianshan mountain unable to calm down for a long time. In a few days, someone came to Tianshan one after another. When someone arrived, they took the empty battleship, the majesty of the warship, able to fly above the sky, and was wrapped in the wind. It was definitely a powerful air defense weapon. The people in the neighborhood had never seen it, and had never heard of it. There were also many strong men on this warship. Several beautiful women had emerged from this ship. Their legs were long, their skin was white and beautiful, and they were magnificent. They had also stepped into the mountains. There is also a strong person who rides a lot of terrible monsters, and the demon crashes into the sky, sweeps across the foot of the Tianshan mountains, and the pressure is tremendous. As more and more powerful people gathered, even the Qiangqiu temple's strong heart was extremely restless. Now the war in the eastern lands is near. I didn't expect that at this time, there were outside forces who set foot in the eastern lands because of the Tianshan bell. As far as they know, there have not been so many foreign powerhouses in the eastern wasteland for so many years, after everyone has walked high, and only those who leave are rarely willing to return. The ruins of the emperor and the lack of resources in the eastern desert are completely unattractive to the outside world. The news of Tianshan gradually spread, the western region shook, and then continued to spread throughout the eastern desert area. In the mountain, thatched hut, Ye Fuxian was the first to know about it except for those who were under Tianshan mountain. When the strong people of all sides stepped on Tianshan mountain, he knew that Xiaodiao was still training in Tianshan mountain. Master, there are people outside Tianwang in Tianshan. After the mountain, Ye Fuxian spoke to Master Du who was sitting and drinking beside the cliff. I know. The old man stared into the distance. I don't think the Tianshan bell has not only shook the eastern wasteland, but also attracted the attention of the outside world, and I don't know whether it is a blessing or a curse. He was very clear that since the imperial ban was issued by the two emperors, there was less and less contact between the eastern wasteland and the outside world. Today, the eastern wasteland has once again attracted the attention of the outside world. This is a variable. Come and sit, said Master Du. Ye Fusion nodded. Sitting next to Master Du, the teacher seemed to be in a bad mood. Do you know why there were only 7 disciples in the thatched hut before you? Du asked suddenly. Ye Fusion shook his head. Although this old man is truly vile, his ability to teach his students is unquestionable, no matter if today my own feelings and the strength of the two brothers and sisters can be seen. Because I am lazy, people are the most complicated. Even a disciple you teach yourself may not be able to agree with everything you teach, especially when many things are involved in the future. It is often easy to abandon everything you have stated before. How can I influence too many people because I have limited energy? I only hope that the disciples I teach can influence more people in the future. Du said that he had another drink. Ye Fusion was the first time he saw the teacher, and he said, before I heard from my brother that the teacher had his own ideals, perhaps he set up a thatched hut to teach his students for this reason. What is ideal? A lazy person like me can have dreams. Du shook his head and said, do you know why Emperor Donghang and Ye King ordered the world to build Wufu Academy? For the sake of the prosperity of the martial arts. Ye Fusion said, this is a historical record. More than 300 years ago, when China was in difficult times, there were countless powers, each occupying one side, or creating a clan, or establishing a confederation. All of them were one of the major players. However, whether the existence of this army is good or bad for the world? Sir asked. Ye Fusion did not respond, listening quietly. Of course, there is nothing wrong with clan and sectarian forces. However, when you have what they want or threaten their interests, some things are bound to happen. For example, why would the Qing dynasty want to deal with it? A thatched hut. Ye Fusion naturally understood that the strength of the thatched hut made the Qing dynasty feel threatened, so the Qing dynasty wanted to get rid of it. Du continued, in mainland China, there are several giants who can influence the state of China. When such giants appear, you should be able to imagine a lot of things, even if you haven't made contact with them. For example, there are many strong men on the mountain at this time. Come on, what if they find out someone has stepped on the peak of the Tianshan mountains and obtained the ruins of the two emperors? Ye Fusion looked at the teacher, and the old man was still looking ahead. He didn't know if it had any meaning, but he naturally understood what the teacher meant. When such giants appear, they will naturally embrace the best geniuses, plunder the best resources, and no one can check and limit their existence, and they will do all sorts of things. This was a word that the teacher and sister reminded him twice. It was the same reason to think independently with sharp weapons. Wasn't that what Luo Tianzi did to him in the first place? Shungzhou has been running like this, never changing for thousands of years, even today. However, there are always some people who have not assimilated into this muddy world after experiencing the vicissitudes of the world, but dream of changing this world. Soap.com. Shungzhou gave birth to two emperors. The old man looked solemnly and respectfully. How can someone who doesn't care about the world become a co-owner of the world and create Wufu Academy in Shungzhou to give as much as possible? A relatively fair chance for everyone in the divine land. However, how difficult it is to change this world. Even the emperor, Mo, said that it is Shungzhou, and it is very difficult for Donghang to change. The old man seemed to be laughing at himself. Ye Fusion at this time also gathered with a playful expression, very serious, and also a little respectful. It turned out that this was the teacher's dream. It seems silly to change the world, but it's kind of sad. How many romantic people from ancient times to the present, they dream of changing the world, but when they reach a certain status, their mentality will be different. If you are the dean of the academy, do you want the other forces in the eastern wasteland to surpass the academy? The old man continued, so Fusion, sooner or later you will come out of the eastern wasteland, you will see more cruel things, experience the turbidity of the world, and hope that no matter what you experience, you can keep your true heart. If one day, you can become a person who influences the world, and even if you are unfair, don't forget your original intentions and become someone you hate. Disciples understand. Ye Fusion nodded. Alright, you go to practice, said the old man. Ye Fusion nodded his head slightly, looking at the old man with a smile. Teacher, just a moment ago, the image of your old man in my mind instantly improved a lot. Go, the old man glanced at him. Ah, the picture has collapsed again. Ye Fusion sighed, and then turned to leave. If the old man, he will put it in his heart, even if he can't be in the world, but he will never commit a crime. Chapter 376, Coming to Book Hill. At the foot of the Tianshan Mountains, there is the tug of Yinglong, the Jinwu bird god, and the worship void. They stood proudly in the air and were extremely beautiful. At this time, many people are interested in Tianshan, and they want to see the remote strong people from outside the eastern wasteland. Recently, the extraordinary young people who set foot in the Tianshan Mountains descended into the mountains and returned to their respective camps. Can't climb to the top of Tianshan Mountain. Countless eyes stared at the beautiful figure in the void. Could these people not even set foot on Tianshan Mountain? Tianshan bells rang last year. Has anyone ever set foot in Tianshan? At this time, behind Yinglong, a handsome young man looked down and asked. Below, many people looked at each other and shook their heads. Buddha's eyes flickered. Since last year, Tianshan is under more pressure. It is normal for him not to rise, even if he is a strong outsider. Yes. At this time, a voice came out. Among the crowd, a figure wearing a golden robe stepped out and saw the many people appearing inside him showing a strange color. It turned out to be Qin Yu of the Qin dynasty. Are you preparing for battle with the college? Actually appeared in Tianshan again. Qin Yu, Qin dynasty, Eastern land. I have seen you. Qin Yu left, said Whopping. Who? The young man did not respond. Even though Qin Yu is extraordinary and powerful, he doesn't care. What he cares about is that someone in the eastern wasteland can set foot in Tianshan. Another strong foreigner's eyes also fell on Qin Yu, with a sharp look, who wanted to know who did it. I am a junior figure. I stepped on the peak of Tianshan Mountain last year. Qin Yu Dav. Where is that man? What is at the top of Tianshan Mountain? A young man on a noble bird, Jinwu asked as if bathing in a bonfire. The eyes seem to contain the will of fire. For this reason, the power of practice is reflected in the temperament, and the meaning of fire is hidden in every movement. In my ancestral gate, there is a will left by the two emperors at the peak of the Tianshan Mountains, leaving behind the famous song, Ukyo. Qin Yudav, Hua Kangking admits that once he steps on the Tianshan Mountains, of course there will be no falsehood. Ukyoku. Everyone's eyes showed a light that caught their attention. Ukyoku is one of the top 10 songs, with the reputation of Ukyoku in the world being impossible. It is rumored that Ukyocho during the peak period of the Eastern Phoenix Emperor can let Vanfa condense. Time and space are still, now, born in Tianshan. If you dare to bully me, and take your own consequences, where is he? I will go there, said the young man in the light of the fire. I want to see it too, said a beautiful woman on the empty boat. The strong people who came all wanted to take the initiative to leave. It seems that they wanted to take the opportunity to get Ukyo. You guys, my juniors are limited in their own cultivation. Although I heard Ukyo, but I only heard it, I can't play it at all, I can't learn it, I can't show it, Qin Yugong said. Everyone's eyes turned away, showing a touch of disappointment. Normal, but this is also normal. It's easy to get Ukyo-cho from any of the top 10 songs, but there's something special about others who can climb the Tianshan Mountains. In that case, you can bring people. The youth said again. Qin Yu nodded. The reason why he came to Tianshan was to hear the news. If we can have a good relationship with people outside the eastern wasteland, what will it be? He speculated that the people who came to the eastern wasteland across space might all be sage-level troops. The people below heard their conversation shaking inside, but they didn't expect someone to actually set foot on Tianshan Mountain, and Ukyo was born. Buddha's heart is like a mirror, and he knows who Qin Yu is referring to. He rested on the peak of Tianshan Mountain, and Ye Fuxian and his entourage arrived. Among them, there was Dongwa Zongwa Kangking, who was following Ye Fuxian and the others. Qin Yu's words meant that Hua Kangking had once stepped on the peak of the Tianshan Mountains. Since Hua Kangking went to the Tianshan Mountains, why did Ye Fuxian leave the Tianshan Mountains without any problems? This seems interesting. The junior meets Prince Qin. Thinking of the Buddha figure vacated, curved towards Qin Yu. Qin Yu looked at the Buddha doubtfully. I wonder why the people in Qiankyu temple called him. But the person called Prince of Qin as Dongwa Zongha Kangking, said the Buddha. Yes. Qin Yu nodded. Since he said it, he couldn't hide it. He hoped that Hua Kangking could bring these people to Tianshan. The Buddha smiled and said, in that case, the younger one knows that someone else has stepped on the peak of the Tianshan Mountains. Perhaps, Hua Kangking has not told His Majesty something. Qin Yu frowned, and said, you said. I saw Hua Kangking when I was at Tianshan Mountain last year, and she was chasing Ye Fuxian at that time, maybe because Ye Fuxian killed Qin Wangsun. Buddha said. Qin Yu's face became ugly when he heard him say that. Then there was a thorn in his heart. If Hua Kangking ascends to the top of the Tianshan mountains, then she must catch up with Ye Fuxian. Why are the two living in peace? At that time, Ye Fuxian was seriously injured and had no strength to resist. The Buddha continued, hearing King Yu instantly understand the hidden meaning in his words, and his face couldn't help but feel embarrassed. For this reason, Hua Kangking didn't say anything, she just told her mother, Madame Yu Xiu, that she had set foot on Tianshan mountain, and nothing was said, because of her identity, no one asked anything. But now that he heard the Buddha's words, he had to think more. Prince King once knew the bell that rang after Ye Fuxian came down the mountain. The Buddha said again, King Yu nodded, and he naturally listened to him, and killed the Ye Fuxian prince, and was killed by Ye Wuchen. Very ironic. If Ye Fuxian stepped over the Tianshan mountains, would the Prince of Qin still think it was a coincidence? The Buddha's words are close to the truth. You mean, Ye Fuxian, there is a relic on Tianshan mountain. King Yu's eyes are very sharp, and Buddha is smiling secretly. Who is Ye Fuxian? Yinglong asked the strong man. Donghanging's strongest practice in the Holy Land, that is, the talent of the hut, is very talented. It is difficult for someone in the eastern wasteland to compare with the hut, Ye Fuxian, who is the smallest hut. Talent is like a demon, and remnants are easily available to him. There are descendants desert that can get the remains of the emperor. The Buddha said to himself, lifting Ye Fuxian high. He knows the dharma and knows the hearts of these people. These people came from outside the wilderness. Such a battle was definitely unusual in status, with pride and majesty. How did he think that he was not as good as the people in the desert? It can be said that it is to seek death, but to set out to tout Ye Fuxian. Really? Sure enough, the young man in the 3-foot Jinwu spoke calmly, and if there was a fire in his eyes, was there such a place in the eastern wasteland? Where is the hut, and you are willing to lead, said the strong aboard the empty battleship. I'm willing to help, Buddha folded his arms and smiled. Help, the man said. The Buddha statue flashed, and he stepped on the void of the warship, and saw a woman standing high on the warship. The beautiful legs seemed to cover most of her body, sexy and beautiful, and the Buddha slightly lowers his head. Hands folded, Buddha's heart did not move. With the exception of this woman, all the other women looked amazing and knew the unusual character at a glance. Everyone turned around and was ready to leave. Since Ye Fuxian had the ruins, he had to go alone, otherwise he would let him do it himself. You will take Hua Kangking, who you just mentioned, to Tianshan and wait here. A strong man in Yinglong said to King Yu, with a proud attitude, but King Yu was not angry, nodded, okay. After saying that, he glanced at Buddha. It seems that the Kyangkyu temple also has a chance to become an ally. The Buddha's intentions were clearly not friendly to Ye Fuxian. The nether warship broke through like lightning. It was emptied by the dragon, its wings opened to cover the sky, and the sun three birds Jinwu made a long beeping sound. Many strong people set off at the same time and went to the middle area of the eastern wasteland. The Book of the Mountain Gods. This. Below, people show a strange touch of color. I thought that the war between the Qin dynasty and the thatched huts would break out, but I didn't expect the sudden arrival of external forces, and I didn't know what would happen when they went to Shushan. Ye Fuxian actually stepped on the peak of Tianshan mountain and got the ruins of the two emperors. With the pride of the thatched hut, if Ye Fu is innocently destroyed, even if it is an external force, I am afraid that it will not easily give up. It was very lively, and the disciples were busy practicing to deal with the possible changes. However, at this time, a cloud suddenly rolled over the ground above Shushan. Many people looked into the void and saw the terrifying Yinglong dive from the sky. At the same time, there is a huge ship. The appearance of the nether warship is very beautiful. Then, there was a dazzling flame above the sky. One after another, strong people appeared in the sky above the book by the great demon, and swooped down. Seeing the shocking scene, Shushan's pupils all trembled inside. What happened? Strong fight. I heard that a foreigner came to Tianshan recently. Why did they come to Shushan? Shushan, a series of figures rose to the sky, several mountain leaders, Mountain Sacred Sword and Mochizuki had strong warriors, looked at the people who came, even the dean of the academy stared at the void, slightly frowning. The power is not weak. The strong people who came to the sky quietly said, but they didn't pay much attention to it. If it weren't for the Eastern Phoenix Emperor's prohibition, this desert would have been ruled long ago. The thatched hut, someone also looked at Shushan, and there was a coldness in Juge Huami's eyes. Dare to be rude. Where are you going? Juge Huigang wanted Yukong and saw Mr. Du shouting. Teacher, I'll check it out, said Juge Hui. Honestly, Master Du glanced at him. Oh, Ju Chui showed his grievances, but he still obeyed Master Du. He naturally understood his master's intentions, but he was not worried. After all, he was very young when he came out. Chapter 377, Shimotomo. Zhu King looked at the strong men who came and said, "Why are you here in my campus?" The strong man in the void glanced at him, and the three-legged cavalry of Jinbula, the young man bathed in the glory of the gods, said, "This is the strongest spiritual sanctuary in the eastern wasteland." He came from the central place of the desolate country. The desolate country is vast and endless, and the desolate country in the east is only a short distance away. Due to the prohibition of the Eastern Phoenix Emperor, the connection with the desolate country is isolated. Without the arrival of a sage-level strong man, naturally degenerate, and even if some talented characters left the East Wasteland, they would not want to return. The vast land of Ozu is vast and has many extremely powerful powers. Except for him, all the other powers who came were super disciples, otherwise they would not have crossed the territory to the East Wasteland. This is Donghanging Academy, Mayor Zong Zushan also said, responding to the other party. Is Ye Fusion here? The slender and beautiful woman asked aboard the empty ship. What's with him? A figure emerges from the air, with an extraordinary temperament and extraordinary ease. He was dressed in white and looked like a scholar, but his body was full of spirit. That was Jiu Dongyu. I heard that Ye Fusion ascended the Tianshan mountain to the ruins of the Tianshang Emperor last year and wanted to see it. The woman's tone of voice was soft and even. Who says it? Jiu Dongyu asked nonchalantly. Little Master knows that he went to Tianshan. As for whether he got anything, he didn't know and wouldn't ask. It's about the ruins of the two emperors. Naturally, the fewer people, the better, but these outsiders now know that it is news from the people of the Eastern Wasteland. Regardless of whether the young master had obtained the ruins of Tianshan Mountain, those who had heard the news were not happy. The woman did not respond, and the Buddha had descended from the void. Where is Ye Fusion? Behind Yinglong, a strong man did not bother to listen to Jiu Dongyu's question, facing directly to the lower lane, his voice shaking above Shushan. They had no time to chat with each other here. Many people are angry, and this person is almost rude. Shushan Cottage, the figure who rose to the sky, was Ye Fusion. He looked at the person doubtfully. Did Hua Kangking say it? If it was him, why did he jump off Tianshan and not hit himself? Why are you looking for me? Ye Fusion looked at everyone. Have you ever been to the top of Tianshan Mountain? Someone asked Yinglong. It's already there. Ye Fusion admitted honestly that the disciples in the academy all blinked their eyes. Last year he ascended to Tianshan and Ye Fusion really ascended. No one knows. What did you get? Someone asked again. At the peak of Tianshan Mountain, there is a song left by the two emperors. I listened to the song, and after a while of practicing on the mountain, I came down, Ye Fusion said. Ukyo Kyoku abandoned by two emperors. Sure enough, Ye Fusion said the same thing as King Yu. It seems that there really is a Ukyo weapon on the peak of Tianshan Mountain. I don't know the name of the song, it's so incomprehensible it's impossible to spy on the mystery. Ye Fusion replied, and my Ukyo is indeed very difficult to practice. If he used common sense to say that he couldn't spy on the mystery, there would be no problem. The people in the thatched hut remembered the melody that sounded last year's night. They knew that Ye Fusion was studying. Of course, it is impossible for the straw disciple to betray Ye Fusion. Did you finish the question? Jiu Dongyu looked sharp and looked forward to the people. These people descended directly above Shushan. It is impossible to live with him. He questioned Ye Fusion in an interrogative manner, and he was furious. Many people in the void looked at Jiu Dongyu and slightly raised their eyebrows. This mountain of books is very proud and seems to have many opinions about them. If nothing else, please do it. Jiu Dongyu said again, these are guests, of course, these people are not counted. Such arrogant attitude. A person with a slight smile behind the great demon looked at Ye Fusion and said, take a walk with us. The people in Shushan look unhappy and arrogant. Who is arrogant? Moreover, it is extremely rude to ask Ye Fusion to follow them directly. You came rudely, directly parachuted my Shushan, and took my students to leave, but also waited for me to whisper, is it too much? Zong Zushan said indifferently, although Ye Fusion belongs to the cottage, it is also a college. Should it be lower class? Yinglong said behind a cold and indifferent old man. The practitioners of the spiritual realm were the most respected, and they would naturally accept in a low voice when they came to the next class. This is a rule that the spiritual world obeys. The eastern lands are now isolated from the abandoned country, and you don't even understand the rules. The strong people who came in the void all took it for granted, this need to be so easy. The people in the academy all showed angry expressions, which was very unpleasant, but they knew that even in the eastern wasteland, this was a potential rule, as was the practice world. The students in the academy all spoke boisterously and uncomfortably. Ye Fusion stood in the void, his face was dull, but his heart was a little turbulent. His teacher talked to him a few days ago. The losses of the world's ancestors are naturally unreasonable. They hoped that the strong would have respect and admiration for the weak. It's not easy. These people came and said that if he wanted to travel, he would certainly travel. After all, it is more polite than the tears Luo Tianzi. After all, he is only a small person to the other party, which is trivial, otherwise, the other party's attitude may not be different from Luo Tianzi. Bottom gate. Jiu Dongyu said indifferently. He is a thatched hut disciple, thatched hut, shamelessly. It was even more impossible for them to take their little master. Jiu Dongyu stepped forward, with an invisible stream of air flowing through his body, and said, Jiu Dongyu, first-class prince, please. The strong people in the void showed different colors. Is it to challenge them? This is interesting, even being challenged by the people of the eastern wasteland. Behind Ying Long, the handsome young man in Longyong glanced at the old man who was talking next to him. The old man immediately came out, and only he said the next thing. His breath is extraordinary, and he is extraordinary. When he stood in the void, space became extremely heavy. In the academy, all the students felt a terrible pressure on them, and they were required to lie down. Several mountain leaders stepped forward, all of them releasing an invisible stream of air, blocking the coercive pressure from the void, and preventing the two from fighting downwards. As for the many strong men above the void, they watched quietly. Huh. The old man snorted coldly. He stretched out his palm and shook Jiu Dongyu's body forward. Suddenly, a terrifying oppressive might was born. The aura of heaven and earth fluctuated violently, as if it had an enormous size. The palm print was born and smashed towards Jiu Dongyu's body. The breath flowing in Jiu Dongyu's body became even more terrifying. The light of the pupil technique was released in his eyes, like lightning, and swept over, and the palm print instantly collapsed into an invisible form, and it became an aura. Are you practicing the holy place in the eastern wasteland? The old man stepped forward, the heavens and the earth were very heavy. He raised his palm, and a rumbling thunder sounded. The earth and nature auras surrounding the vast space crazily ran, oppressing Jiu Dongyu's body. In order to make people unable to move, he raised his palm and threw a punch in the air, and crackling sounds continuously appeared in the void. People only saw the terrifying fist pierce through the void, as if Ling Tianwei was swept away. People feel like they can destroy everything. With this blow, the world roared and swept, like terror, sweeping over Jiu Dongyu's body. Oh! Around Jiu Dongyu's body, the ancient Chinese character Guangba circulated and turned into 9 characters. Pro, warrior, fight, people, all, formation, line, front, line. Every ancient word is transformed into a hello, which is very bright and stunning. The boundless fist intent came through the void with a mighty trend, like the celestial fist, which could shatter the void and destroy everything. Under this fist, Jiu Dongyu's figure looked very weak and was about to be crushed in this overbearing blow, but he stood still there, and when the fist fell, the 9 characters bloomed very brightly, sweeping the surrounding world, destroy everything. The fist meant to continue to oppress forward, but was crushed by the 9 Guangba characters until it disappeared. When the strong people in the void see this scene, they will feel something strange. They naturally feel that the will of Prince Jiu Dongyu has reached its peak and is extremely arrogant. Jiu Dongyu looked indifferently, looked at each other, and then he took a step forward. In a simple move, his body turned into a flash of lightning and disappeared. In the void, there are still after images. Raw. A terrifying roar came out, and the old man's life and soul bloomed. He was a rock ape wearing armor. It was large and stood behind its body. His right hand was slightly retracted, as if he was integrated with a stone ape. When he saw the lightning streamer coming, he roared, his fist exploded, and the stone ape roared and shook the earth. The terrible blow is like a mountain, and he wants to kill everyone who stands in front of him, and boxing will overlap and add, like endless, giving people an unshakable feeling. The streamer pierced the void and rushed straight into the terrifying huge fist. There was a cracking sound from the sky and the sky was full of stones. The dull rumbling sound continued. The crowd saw all the strong fist shadows pierced through. There was a sharp and boundless brilliance, unstoppable. Bang! With a loud noise, the arrogant old man turned into the shape of a bow. In front of him, a palm was imprinted on his body. In the next moment, his body exploded like lightning, and he rushed towards Yinglong, behind him. A man stepped out, unleashing his immense strength, blocking his retreat and capturing his body. With a short breath, the old man vomited blood and stained his clothes. First class door. Prone. Jiu Dongyu stood where the old man was standing, glanced at him slightly, and said coldly. The old man vomited blood again, his face red. Chapter 378, Drawing. Gone in seconds. The old man's blood rolled down his body, only feeling very embarrassed. Inferior gait. He failed miserably. Behind Ying Long, the young man led by him had a great temper. He glanced at Jiu Dongyu and said, I'm from Nanshanfu, the desert state. If you want to join our house, you won't owe you anything. He transferred his love for talent. Although this is the land of the eastern desert and the gate of the lower class, it is not surprising to come out of talented people. This place is called the strongest spiritual practice ground in the eastern wasteland. It's only natural to see some dazzling characters. Therefore, he wanted to put the other party's income into Nanshanfu. If Jiu Dongyu was willing to follow him, it could be of great help to him in the future. After all, he had many competitors in the government. When he encountered powerful figures, Corporal Lixian was not shameful. Laishanfu is the power of the family, you can enter my Taishuan mountain to practice. A strong man riding on the back of the demon also said, Jiu Dongyu can summon 9 characters, the soul is extraordinary, very strange guys, it is good to draw. May you wish to enter my mundane world. On the void worship, the slender beautiful woman also said, her voice was gentle, the beauty of her beauty was fully demonstrated, and her strength was called the worldly world. Below, the people in the academy heard the strange look of the words of many strong people in the void, although these people wanted to draw Jiu Dongyu. However, who was Jiu Dongyu? The 3 cottage disciples, the famous figures of Donghang, even if they are from the great powers outside the desolate country, but Jiu Dongyu needs to cling to them. Although the disciples didn't like the hut, it didn't mean that they weren't in awe of Jiu Dongyu, especially after the storm. The 3 grassroots disciples stood in front of the world to show their extraordinary talent. Jiu Dongyu is in the minds of the young disciples. China is a legend, even if it is an external power. The strong man in Nanshanfu was not vulnerable, and Jiu Dongyu lost it with a single blow. The confidence of the defeated army. The man who lost is so arrogant, is thus first class. In Shushan, many disciples whispered, and they spoke very badly to the youth in Nanshanfu. Maybe it was Corporal Li Zhangxian who invited Jiu Dongyu, but they heard it as an insult to Kotang Jiu Dongyu. You can never go wrong with yours when you enter another house. In this sentence, what will Jiu Dongyu do? Join him in Nanshanfu to look after the followers. It's ridiculous. Behind the young man who spoke in Nanshanfu's language, there was a young man in his 20s who heard his voice frown. A smile flashed across his cold and proud eyes. The people in the Donghang realm who were waiting for the Zongman power didn't seem to be in awe of him in the Nanshanfu. They were isolated from Donghang for a while, and probably didn't understand the outside world at all. His body flashed, and he went to the sky like the same skirt, and the momentum of the heaven country bloomed, and he said loudly, I am in the heaven country, I want to see how the strength of the disciples in the eastern wasteland practice the holy land. He doesn't have a self-declared name, and the people here don't deserve it. He did it only because he heard the many words below and taught these people a lesson. Let them understand what kind of strength is Nanshanfu. The people who had just fought with Jiu Dongyu simply couldn't represent Nanshanfu at all. The body is bright, very sharp, and pale white, like the armor of a warrior bathing, like lightning, heading straight for Shushan. The students in the academy showed their sharp eyes, and saw a disciple stepped forward, with a strange figure, rose into the air, and headed straight for the other side. He wanted to see how strong the people in Nanshanfu, the foreign army in the desolate state, were. The dazzling brilliance of gold was very eye-catching. The academy disciples who rose from the mountain air waved their hands, and incantations bloomed, and golden rays pierced through as if they were as sharp as a sword. However, the youth in Nanshanfu did not escape, stepped in the air, an endless golden sharp spear pierced his body, and he was trampled and crushed directly. The golden spear passed through his body, and the attack right below him was struck. Broken straight away, very arrogant. After the spell broke, the youth continued to descend into the sky like lightning. The aura of the disciples resounded throughout the body. Endless metallic auras came together. However, the spell had not yet bloomed, and the figure of another person came directly down and stepped. Furthermore, Shushan's pupils seemed to change slightly, and the auras turned into golden spears piercing each other in a hurry. Kacha. His footsteps fell, and he broke the spear. The disciples wanted to retreat, but wherever he could, the other party stepped on him with one foot, trampled his chest, and suddenly his body fell straight into the sky, in the void. Take out the bloodline. Eastern land practicing Holy Land. The young man's gaze swept to the sky, and the silver radiance flowing on his body was like a real weapon armor, dazzling. He could instantly destroy attack spells with one foot, and his strength was extraordinary. Oh! Shushan, several people rose into the air in succession. The wind spell was very fast, and went straight to the other party. The young man swept, and then he flew into one of them, and the two corpses immediately touched, and the academy student spilled blood and fell. Furthermore, the Nanshanfu powerhouse flickered continuously and turned into a silver shadow. One after another emptied of Shushan, and nothing could shake the tip, and nothing could compare to the sky. His training is strange, his soul must be extraordinary, and he is like a magic weapon. A strong man in the academy said, this person should be a core disciple of Nanshanfu, and it is natural for him to be strong. At this moment, another figure appeared, Xiao Wuji. Today, among the disciples in the academy, Xiao Wuji in the heaven realm was the strongest. Xiao Wuji bathed the princes of all the attributes of the spells of each department were born, their stature was bright, and the two collided together in the battle in the void. The battle was very fierce and finally it was no longer broken. In the void, the strong people watched all this patiently. This is the strongest sacred place in the eastern wasteland. They also wanted to see the practitioners here. It seems that there are talented people, and this person is very good. The young man below is Tianjiao's character from Nanshanfu, whose name is Nanu. In the Nanshanfu younger generation, he can rank in the top 10. He is a child, and he has all the advantages. He was able to fight with him to this day. Seldom. Nanu became stronger and stronger, flowing endless silver brilliance, each brilliance extremely sharp, and pierced Xiao Wuji. He had a spear in his hand, a beautiful marksmanship, wide open and close. When the stab moved, the clouds flowed, even if it was Xiao Wuji tried to avoid by moving with a wind spell, but saw that the opponent's marksmanship pressed hard without leaving the back way, pacing everything, and finally Xiao Wuji rejected with one swipe. Nice super sniper. The people at the academy have sharp eyes. They cannot come with exceptional marksmanship. After the shooting, the situation gathered, and a terrible trend formed around them. Way back. To be able to do this, there are still talented people. Nanu looked at Xiao Wuji vaguely. Yes. When he spoke, the ground shook, and a figure flew in the air. The figure was wild. Thatch hut. The pupils of Shushan's eyes were swept away, and those who appeared emptied themselves of the thatched huts for the rest of their lives. The rest of his eyes stared indifferently towards Nanu in the void. Nanu looked into his eyes, revealing a touch of an interesting look. This person's breath is wild. The rest of your life, come back. Ye Fusion shouted, in the void. His whole body stopped suddenly, and he looked back at Ye Fusion, slightly turned towards Ye Fusion. His eyes looked like he was asking why he was not allowed to fight. These people are too arrogant, come directly to get people, take Ye Fusion away. Ye Fusion glared at him. With his lifelong drive, if he didn't know what he would do, the young man had an extraordinary status. If he was seriously injured, he would be in trouble. Of course, he couldn't ignore the rest of his life. Tishanfu's training resources are absolutely not comparable to the Eastern Wasteland. You can see the battle now. Do you want to reconsider? The youth on Yinglong's back is called Nanfeng, and the younger generation of Nanshanfu can rank in the top 3. Character, Prince Tianshan couldn't enter, so he sent the younger generation of Tianjia, who was very outstanding among all forces, to come here. The academy disciples look really bad. Before Jiu Dongyu suppressed the momentum from the other side, now the other person's face was swept away, his face disappeared. Not interested, Jiu Dongyu said coldly. Okay. Nanfeng nodded, then looked at Ye Fusion, and said, I still want to take people, as long as he takes us to the Tianshan mountains, it will not hurt him. Ye Fusion and Qin Yu's words confirm each other. There should be no lies. He believed that there was a Ukyokoji above Tianshan, but Ye Fusion couldn't. There is no time, Jiu Dongyu said, and the person beside Nanfeng frowned, who seemed to be toasting and not eating. The strong people of the great powers in the void are permeated with coldness and coercion, and Donghang and other ancestors are stubborn and rebellious against their will. 3 brothers. At this point, Ye Fusion took a step forward and said, I will go with them to Tianshan. Jiu Dongyu looked at Ye Fusion and said, Brother, no one can force you to do anything, just leave it to us. I know, but I also want to go to Tianshan again. Ye Fusion insisted that now the Academy Alliance itself was a strong enemy, and the Qin dynasty looked at him with shame. Now, because of this, he is fighting against foreign forces in the desert country. It was a disaster for the lodge. Naturally, he can't ignore other people because of his personal problems, not to mention that when he arrives in Tianshan, he will be fine. Let him go. Kotang, a voice came out. Jiu Dongyu turned his eyes, then nodded, yes, teacher. The voice came from Mr. Du. Since the teacher said the same thing, he naturally wouldn't insist. The power of every strong force in the void met. It seems that there are still people who know the current affairs. Even though the sages did not enter the eastern wasteland, how could the forces from the eastern wasteland counteract their might from the desolate country? Chapter 379, Chance. The people in the academy stared at the blank figure, and they were all very sad. Even if they faced the Qin dynasty alliance, the academy was never weak. Especially in the thatched huts, the Qin dynasty has killed many important people in the hands of the thatched huts, but they still can't help it, but now they are being suppressed by the outside forces. The troops of the deserted country, and there are some strong forces, everyone knows that the academy can't compete, so Ye Fusion will actively agree and compromise, even if Jiu Dongyu insists. Let's go. Nanfang looked at Ye Fusion. The rest of his life took a step forward, his eyes were furious. Still fine. Ye Fusion glanced at him, then looked up into the void, and smiled. He walked in the void and walked in one direction. Instead of going to Yinglong, he went to an empty battleship. Nan Yu frowned, and glanced at Ye Fusion, looking a little annoyed. Can I go up? Ye Fusion smiled at the woman who was heading to the warship. The woman with beautiful long legs, named Chu Chang, was a girl of worldly pride. When he saw Ye Fusion approaching the battleship, he smiled and said, please. Thank you very much. Ye Fusion stepped into the empty warship, and the people in the empty academy watched the scene for a while. This person was really going to choose a place, but when they saw Ying Yu's embarrassing face behind the dragon, everyone was dark. Cool, that's the problem, let's go. Nanfang on Ying Long's back was not fighting for anything. Ying Long Tengun, the nether warship floated in the air, and the strong people departed from Shushan. In the hut, Hua Sheiyu's beautiful eyes showed a worried expression, and looked at Master Du, teacher. It's all right, rest assured, Mr. Du whispered softly. He was waiting in Tianshan that day. After a few bells ringing, he noticed something faint. At the end of the year, the hut voice to Kyoto, and he naturally understood what it meant. The man went to Tianshan, I was afraid it would be like a fish. Moreover, the boy was very smart. I'll go there, Juge Hui said restlessly. Du did not stop, many figures flashed away from Shushan, and Juge Hui, Dao Sheng, and Jiu Dongyu also marched into the void and headed towards Tianshan. During the journey, the clouds rolled in and the Dutch warship was very fast. Yinglong and Jinzu, the three-legged Jinwu, followed, apparently watching Ye Fusion not letting the worldly people take him away. Ye Fusion stood in front of the warship and smiled at the woman. My name is Ye Fusion, what is your name? Chu Chang. The woman's gaze turned slightly forward. Behind the two, several women stood on the warship, and there were still many powerful princes staring at Ye Fusion. The boy took the initiative to set foot on their warship, and now they are leaving with Chu Chang again, and they have unbelievable ideas. With Chu Chang's face and disposition, he was indeed very attractive. However, this person did not want to think about Chu Chang's identity. He dared to have excessive expectations, perhaps in a desert land. How big is the distance between them? I heard you talking to my three brothers before. You are from the earth. This name is very beautiful. What kind of power is this earth in the desert country? It must be very strong, right? Ye Fusion asked casually, and the people behind him thought too much. Too many. The reason for coming to this warship is simply because seeing Chu Chang is better than seeing the Nanfeng brothers. What's more, women generally speak better. Their attitude towards the three older brothers could be seen earlier. Nature is not comparable to the power in the eastern wasteland, Chu Chang said casually. Even if all your troops in Donghang increase, it is not enough to see. A woman behind him said coldly. Ye Fusion smiled. Naturally he knows this, the strongest person decides everything, the great powers that come to the deserted country are the princes, there must be a sage figure, how do the armies in the eastern desert compete? He didn't ask anymore, the other party's attitude was cold and arrogant. He could naturally see that looking at this battleship was really wasteful. From that point of view, we can see the prosperity of the desert country. I heard that you are the most talented young generation in the eastern wasteland. At this time, behind Yinglong next to him, Nan Yu stood there, looked at Ye Fusion on the warship, and said in a loud voice, the voice followed the wind. 4. At the foot of Tianshan, the monk said that if one could get the ruins of the emperor in the wastelands of the east, it would be Ye Fuxian. Ye Fuxian's eyes flickered. These people went to thatched huts to find themselves. Apparently someone told them where the Hua Kunking was still unknown. Now he heard Nan Yu say this. Who is he who is so mean to himself? I am so talented that I just stepped into the realm of heaven. Who is so commendable to me is flattered, Ye Fuxian said with a smile. How can a talent have a foothold on the peak of Tianshan mountain? Nan Yu sarcastically said that he couldn't be trusted. Perhaps luck, Ye Fuxian said again. Nan Yu glanced at him lightly, and his eyes were a bit ironic. If Ye Fu's innate talent is strong, he will sweep the academy and don't dare to fight, asking if he doesn't dare to respond, and it is not worth paying attention to. Some people guessed that you got the Tianshan ruins, is it true or false? At this time Chu Chang also asked with a smile. He had a smile on his face, looking gentle, but Ye Fuxian felt attracted, and the faint cold and arrogant meaning in the smile was naturally felt. Go out, how deep Tianshan is unpredictable, and the sound of the harp is very mysterious. I can't figure it out. I can only listen to its artistic conception, let alone get a relic. Does the fairy think it's possible? Ye Fuxian responded. Naturally will not admit it. Chu Changmi's eyes looked at Ye Fuxian seriously. Seeing Ye Fuxian's clear and handsome eyes, he turned his eyes away and didn't ask anymore. This guy's appearance is extraordinary, and I don't know what his talent is. If he considers Ye Fuxian to work for him and bring him into the world to practice. Tianshan, a group of people came. King Yu also arrived, bringing Hua Kunking, Dongba Zongwa sovereign, and Madame Yu Xiu. They were a little displeased, and King Yu didn't expect to tell Hua Kunking. However, King Yuan considered the overall situation, and they could only suppress the anger in their hearts. In addition, Hua Kunking admitted that Ye Fuxian also set foot in the Tianshan mountains. As for what happened, she did not say that Madame Yu Xiu was wondering what had happened to her daughter and Ye Fuxian in the Tianshan mountains. In this case, he did not tell King Yu anymore. Seeing Ye Fuxian appear, King Yu's eyes flashed in thought to kill. Ye Fuxian naturally saw them, and there was a touch of coldness in his eyes, and it was really related to them. Then she saw Hua Kunking, and it turned out that Hua Kunking looked up, Mei Mei looked at her, her expression a little complicated. He thought, if the real thing happened again, would he hit Ye Fuxian? Is he? Nanfang glanced at Hua Kunking. This woman is very beautiful. Even in a remote country, she was also a top-tier beauty. She was superior in appearance and beauty to the Chu Chang in the world. The body is transparent, with pure meaning. Yes, she is what I call Hua Kunking, a junior who once set foot on the peak of the Tianshan mountains. King Yu nodded. Okay, you two go to Tianshan with us. Nanfang looked at Ye Fuxian and Hua Kunking Road. Since the two of them have set foot in Tianshan, of course they have some ways. They probably know how to set foot in Tianshan. The most suitable. If the pressure on the mountain today is stronger than when you came last time, you might not be able to go up. Hua Kunking said softly. He stood at the foot of Tianshan mountain and felt it naturally. If you don't try to figure out the way, you can lead the way. The holy fire teaches the young man who is burning, his name is Duo. Hua Kunking glanced at Duo, then nodded gently, and then walked towards Tianshan. Careful, Madame Yu Xiu asked, her eyes staring coldly at King Yu. It seems that she is not happy about this matter. Ye Fuxian, Hua Kunking, and the young people of all major powers approached Tianshan. The existence of those prince kings left Tianshan and watched them. In the distance, there are several figures in the crowd who are stepping on Baishu, their eyes are staring ahead, and it is the sword master who can't calm down to follow. Although the goal of this army from the deserted state is Tianshan, it will not harm the young master, but there are still some precautions. Tianshan, Ye Fuxian, and Hua Kunking walked in front, neither of them spoke, the strong men behind them followed, they tried it last time and failed. The snow that floats on this mountain is like an aura. Just listening to Chu Chang reach out to receive the snowflakes, staring at the vast snowy mountain in front of him. If so, isn't the entire Tianshan mountain an aura? Ye Fuxian laughed and said in his heart that Chu Chang's feelings were right. Tianshan is indeed full of aura, and the two emperors will merge into the whole of Tianshan. Every snowflake is a hidden meaning. When he stepped on Tianshan mountain, he felt a familiar feeling, only he felt comfortable, and the little statue was still practicing there, and everything on Tianshan mountain could be seen. How did you climb the mountain last time? Chu Chang asked. The repair is low, so the pressure is less, and the luck is good. Ye Fuxian said. Tianshan has a strong compulsion of will and evil thoughts. He can resist and climb to the top of the mountain, but this time the two have become stronger. Hua Kangking whispered, without revealing Ye Fuxian, even Buddha. It's just speculation that only he knows best. Ye Fuxian studied the Ukiyo Kyoku left behind by the two emperors. His downhill bell must have been played by him, no coincidence. Quick, said one of Tai Zuanshan's strong men. There is no threat to them under the Tianshan mountains, and there is little pressure to accelerate. Ellipsis ellipsis ellipsis. At the foot of the Tianshan mountains, Qin Yu preached to the emperor of the Dongba sect, the sword is here. What do you want? Hua Zongju replied, and he naturally knew that the sword masters had arrived. The sword masters, the brothers Zhu Chui and Jiu Dongyu, were all in the snow at the foot of Tianshan mountain. A cold smile flashed across Qin Yu's eyes. What we want is not this opportunity. Chapter 380, General. Tianshan, Snow White. On the mountain road, a group of figures continued to ascend. It was Ye Fuxian and his team. Their speed changed from fast to slow. Gradually, the speed continued to decrease, and the pressure became greater. How long? Tai Zuanshan Youth Lan asked Ye Fuxian. It has been a long time since they set foot in Tianshan, and they still can't see until the end. Like the last experience, Ye Fuxian, since they entered Tianshan, they must know. I don't know. If you want to go to Tianshan, you can't talk about the length of time. The more you go up, the greater the pressure, and the last road is the most difficult to go. Ye Fuxian said. You seem relaxed. Nan Tianfu Nan Yu glanced at Ye Fuxian. I've walked many times before, so it's only natural to be easier. Ye Fuxian smiled. Nan Yu glanced at Ye Fuxian with a sharp gaze. There was a faint gleam of evil light in his eyes, influenced by Tianshan's evil thoughts, and his heart was a little manic. Not only him, but also others, as they continue to move forward, some people can't support it, and can't stand the pressure to choose to quit and leave Tianshan. Chu Changmi's eyes also glanced at Ye Fuxian. He walked briskly and seemed calm. Tianshan's influence on him is very small, not only him, but also Hua Kangking. He walks on snowflakes. Although Hua Kangking and others are okay, but it seems that they are not dependent on the world, like our Zunmei. This made a strange feeling in the hearts of those lonely people. They naturally wouldn't think that they would be worse than the two of them, but what was the reason? If the two really had the knowledge to go to Tianshan, it would be impossible for them not to be discovered by them. It had been a few days since a group of people had entered Tianshan across the area. The path up the mountain was too difficult to walk, and the number of people accompanying it was getting smaller and smaller. Now there were only a dozen people left. No fighting while climbing. The speed is getting slower and slower, and even the figure of the heavenly pride of the arrival of the great power in a desert, the evil thoughts in his eyes have become more and more intense. The holy fire taught Duo, and he was still bathing in the majestic flames of fire, enduring the cold and pressure of the Tianshan mountains, but in his eyes and pupils, there seemed to be an evil fire burning, as if he felt a very evil power, constantly infiltrating will's infiltration affects him. The compulsion of evil will and thoughts has become stronger. Let's surrender. Hua Kangking turned around and whispered to the people, and the crowd in the snow looked at her pure and immaculate eyes, still without receiving any erosion, standing among the snowflakes, jade bones, and ice muscles, not eating human fireworks. Since you were able to go up last time, it's the same this time. The Holy Fire Duo's teachings advance. He suddenly stretched out his hand and placed it on Hua Kangking's shoulder, staring at the flawless woman in front of him. Hua Kangking's body shivered, and she slipped away when another palm touched her shoulder, and her eyes became indifferent for a moment. He looked at Duo coldly and released a cold gleam. The eyes of the people around him gave off a strange color. Chu Chang glanced at Duo coldly. Although the devil's will on Tianshan can strengthen people's evil thoughts, Duo is the Tianzhao character of the holy fire. By doing so, you lose your identity. Duo is right, let's go, Nan Feng said softly. Of course, it was impossible to give up so easily. Hua King looked at Duo coldly, then turned around and continued walking on the mountain road. Duo's eyes were burning with evil fire, and his eyes were staring at Hua Kangking's back. Naturally, she was not affected by all evil thoughts, but because Hua Kangking herself had a lot of interest in her. This woman had a pure and immaculate temperament. He is born that way and is not affected by evil thoughts. This was probably the reason why he was able to ascend to the Tianshan mountains. Hua Kangking not only has a beautiful face, but also has an extraordinary body. If she can become an accomplice, it will be beneficial for her to practice some kind of fire practice. Such extraordinary women are very rare in Araju. You have a good physique. Are you good at the fire attribute? Duo stepped forward and asked Hua Kangking. Not good, Hua Kangking responded nonchalantly and continued. I have a lot of strange training in flames, which will suit your training characteristics. Do you want to follow flames to train with me? Duo continued, and everyone around him looked at Duo. Really relaxing. Nanyu sneered, but Hua Kangking was really beautiful and very attractive. Ye Fusion. Nanyu shouted at the figure in front. Ye Fusion turned his head to look at him. You may want to enter my Nanshanfu and become my master, and become the general of my Nanshanfu in the future. When you set foot in Tianshan all the way, Nanyu's impression of Ye Fusion has changed slightly. It seems that this person's desire must be very extraordinary, otherwise he can't endure now. He is willing to give Ye Fusion a chance to enter his Nanshanfu. The children in the Nanshanfu family, like him, must have some status in the family in the future, and they can have their own strength. For example, the people who followed them to the eastern wasteland with their generals in Nanshanfu. No need. Ye Fusion smiled, His Majesty. The general of the Nanshanfu family. Eastern desert cultivation is a lack of resources. Even if you have good talent, your training will still be delayed. Given that you have good talent, we want you to enter Nanshanfu. You can see how many people in Wangzhou dream of this. Figures the top prince figures are also willing. Nanfang also spoke and looked at Ye Fusion with a slight glance down, but to him, it was already Ye Fusion's appreciation. He couldn't explain the status of Nanshanfu to the people of the eastern wasteland, and probably only knew when Ye Fusion went to the desert. Ye Fusion smiled and shook his head. I'm still used to my division. Nanshanfu, can it be compared to a thatched hut? Big brother, third brother, and kind sister Exinger, fourth and fifth brothers are also very good, although Ye Shaoxi's little child is a little evil recently. He is still very cute, but the old man. This is almost unacceptable. Let him give up a beautiful place and head in Nanshanfu. Stupid. You people in the eastern wasteland who are practicing the Holy Land are a little stupid. Nanyu said weakly, apparently referring to the previous Jiu Dongyu, and the two rejected Nanshanfu. Ye Fusion thinks he is an idiot, isn't he the same, giving up the opportunity to enter Nanshanfu? In the future, if he understood what Nanshanfu meant, he would naturally regret it. As people continued to increase, gradually, only 7 still insisted. Hua Fusion and Hua Kangking. Nanfeng, Nanyu, Chushang on Earth, Holy Fire Duo, Hanlin on Taishuan Mountain. At this moment, their footsteps became extremely heavy, and so did Ye Fusion. He took a walk on the mountain path, and a gust of wind blew past the people. Even Nanfeng and them vaguely feel that they are almost at the limit and are difficult to support. On each and every one of them, each one released a powerful breath. Nanfeng and Nanyu wore silver armor, which was extremely dazzling. Chu Chang was bathed in a brilliant light, like a fairy on earth, and Duo was wearing a divine firelight. However, at this moment the flames seemed to have suffered. With the dissipation of the evil will, dark and evil flames burned. Harlan's body released a wild atmosphere, like a monster, with cold pupils. Hua Kangking, her pure and immaculate body seemed to throb with notes, bathed in holy light. Tianshan is not far away, and you should be able to go up again if you insist. The last time you did it, you can cross the line and you can set foot in Tianshan. Ye Fusion's face turned red, and his eyes flashed with a terrible light, like a great pain, but still grit your teeth to support, step by step. Hua Kangking glanced at Ye Fusion. He could hide from others, but he couldn't hide it. Ye Fusion, he is disguised, but of course he will not reveal it. Here, it is still far from Tianshan Mountain. The last time the Buddha stopped Ye Fusion from them. He knows that these people can't get to Tianshan Mountain, especially Ye Fusion. The people supported him steadily, and their steps continued to slow down. Evil thoughts were everywhere, and they even faintly felt the existence of a terrible monster bird, which came to mind. How long is that? Nanyu raised an eyebrow and asked Ye Fusion. Fast. Ye Fusion said loudly. After a while, the flames that bathed in Duo's body seemed to turn into darkness, and the eyes were extremely evil, and the desire was irresistible. How long? Duo also asked. It will come, Ye Fusion said. How many times have you repeated these 2 words? Duo's eyes shone with an evil spirit, and his tone was threatening. I can insist that you are all great people from the desert country, and of course you can. If I can't stand it, I will quit. Ye Fusion said. Duo Leng hummed, and the others were cold inside, a dilemma. Ye Fusion and Hua Kangking did not back down. Ye Fusion sneered, wasn't he going to climb up Tianshan? Okay, he's accompanied. They're all big guys from the lonely states, they're pretentious, in that case, see how long they can last. He sneered and kept walking, maintaining a speed so slow that everyone could follow him. In the will of everyone's mind, a terrible owl appeared, and the monster bird seemed to attack their will, which made them very depressed. With a groan, Nan Yu could no longer lift his legs and stopped. What is it? Ye Fuxian turned to Nan Yu and asked. Are you here? Nan Yu looked at Ye Fuxian. Soon. Are still these two words. Nan Yu stared coldly at Ye Fuxian, with crazy red blood in his eyes. He didn't remember how many times Ye Fuxian said quickly. Can't you hold on? Ye Fuxian showed a strange look. Otherwise, don't force it, there will be danger. After all, you are the Tianzhou man in Nanshanfu. If there is an accident. Yes. Nan Yu's eyes shone with a strange red light, and he continued to step forward. There was an evil flow in his body, and his eyes became more and more evil. Bloodstains. Both Nan Feng and Chu Chang's eyes fell on Ye Fuxian. Even though they are affected by evil thoughts, their senses are still there. They both felt that something was wrong. If they continued, they would collapse.